What's up, everyone? This is Matt Morozic. So this is why I don't do repairs, and I found out the hard way. This is a Silver Surfer board, not the Bushi board, that I agreed to fix several months ago. I was contacted by someone, I'm not going to say names, about a simple repair on a chrome board. So just looking at the few pictures I got, I quoted a price of like $65 to fix it. This has been sitting in my shop for over 2 months now, just because when I first took on the project, I said, I'll fix it when I have time. Well, I don't have time. I work on projects from the time I get home till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning every night. On the weekends, if I'm not at a soccer game, I'm working on prototypes and contracted builds. So I finally decided to try to tackle this last weekend and really took a good look at the board. And well, the finish on this thing is not very good. There's a lot of orange peel. I'm not sure if it's showing up in the camera here. There's a ton of surface scratches. The few areas that need to be fixed were worse than what it looked like in the photos. So I told the producer of this, like, hey, the whole board needs to be re-chromed. That's the only way to fix it correctly. And I mean, we chatted non-stop on and off about how to fix it. And I go, this is chrome. You can't blend chrome. It's not like a paint. It's a finish. He's like, oh, just throw a coat of All-Clad on top and be done with it. Well, that wouldn't work because, first of all, All-Clad is extremely fragile. I've never gone All-Clad to look like chrome, and it would just look pretty dull, and all the surface imperfections would still show through. So I thought I would try the Molotow Chrome markers. So I had a few. I threw it in my airbrush. I tested it on a spoon, and I found out that it's the exact opposite of like a All-Clad. You have to spray it on real wet. So I sprayed on a real wet, coated on spoon, and bam, it looked like a mirror. I was like, holy shit, this stuff really works. So I thought I would try to spot fix the board. And so like right here, there was a huge, like a deep scratch. There's actually a few more in here. There's actually dirt in the surface and stuff from the factory. It's just overall the finish isn't very good. On the edges, there are a bunch of areas that need to be fixed. So those areas actually turned out okay because when you try to blend paint, the trick is to try to either, it's hard to explain unless you paint cars. When you do like a clear coat, you can sometimes get the clear coat to melt the underlying substrate, whatever you're spraying on, and you can buff it out and it'll blend. Same with the paint. You get the colors as close as you can, you fan it out till it's real thin. It's actually a real gradual fade job is what you're doing with color. And then you clear coat it, sand it, and buff it. Well, so with the Molotow Chrome, I was able to do the edges okay. And then I hit this spot, and I had this area looking right here, looking better. It actually looked better than the factory finish. It was smooth. There was no orange peel because I had sanded it out. But I had a really rough edge here because that's where I finished spraying. You know, I tried to blend it, and I said, okay, I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to let it dry. I let it dry for 3 days because everything around the line you got to let it dry for 3 to 5 days before you touch it. And after 3 days, I was able to pick it up, no fingerprints and everything. And then I tried to kind of polish it out and blend it. Well, you can see it just turned complete shit. So back to the producer, hey man, this thing needs to be re-chromed. That's the only way to fix it correctly. And so basically what I told the guy that owns this board, like, hey look, the producer doesn't want to do it right. Since I said I would fix it, I'm going to fix it for you. I'm going to pay for it myself. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep this, I'm going to prime it, I'm going to send it to Creations in Chrome and have them re-chrome it because that's the only way to do this correctly. I don't know how to chrome with paint very good yet. I want to learn how to hydrochrome. So anyway, I'm talking a lot, but I just want to kind of give a backstory on this repair and why I decided I'm never doing repairs again, because you quote a price based on pictures, you get the piece, and then it's different, and how you thought you could fix it doesn't work. So basically, by the time I'm done with this is going to cost me about $300 out of my pocket, plus my time to fix, because the producer doesn't want to do it correctly. So I'm a man of my word. I said I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it. Whether it's out of my expense or not, so be it. I'm not going to send something out of my shop that I wouldn't put my name on. I wouldn't just spray a layer of All-Clad chrome on this and have it look like shit and ship it to the guy and say, hey, look, it's done. It would look terrible. So yeah, this is going to personally cost me $200 to $300 plus my time. Time-wise, it's not going to be too bad. I'm going to sand it down right now. You can see right here, even though this is the bottom side, there's like huge scratches, and there's like a big imperfection right here. So, the statue is actually pretty cool. It's just, it's not a Bushi collector quality piece, and the price reflects that. I'm not sure what the final price was. I think it was like $600 for this thing. But anyway, so the first step I'm going to do is I got some 400 grit wet dry sandpaper. I'm going to wet sand this thing down, get all the orange peel out, get all the scratches out, and by the time I'm done, it should look like this, or even more. Actually go through this. Actually, I think this is a chrome paint. This is some sort of chrome finish that they clear coated on top of, because I was sanding a little bit here, and I wasn't taking the chrome off. I was just taking the clear coat off. So you can actually see here, I thought I'd be able to wet sand it with like an 8,000 grit sandpaper and then buff the clear out, but it's very thin, so I went right through the paint, right through the chrome into the resin and the paint, or the resin and the primer, factory primer. So first step is to wet sand this with 400 grit wet sandpaper. I'm not going to show that, but basically you just take your sandpaper, you wet it, and you block it out, and then I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Okay, again, sorry for the shitty lighting. I'm outside, so it's not taking. This is actually sanding pretty quick, but I wanted to show you little stuff like this little speck right there. So that's actually in the finish. So that was showing through the chrome. So you have to get rid of all that little shit in order for this to look good. You can see all these little specks. I don't know if you can see again, the lighting sucks because I'm outside, but all these little spots, that's dirt in the paint. Now, I said this before, all my paint surfaces have dirt in them, but that's what flat coat is for. But when you chrome or clear coat something, you got to get all that stuff out. And part of the problem was that the producer's like, oh, this is on the bottom, you're not going to see it. Well, I don't care. It needs to be done correctly. So, you know, this is what the top side looks like after wet sanding. Now this has gone through the chrome paint down to the resin. The resin's interesting. It's actually like a pink resin, and you can see where they've done their spot putty work to fix the surface. But the top is all done. As you're sanding, if you don't see anything, little areas pop out, you're good to go. All the orange peel is gone. If you don't know what orange peel is, it's exactly what it is. The term is, it sounds like the surface looks like it's got the texture of an orange. So the top's done. That took me about 10 minutes. The edges went pretty quick because they're a hard edge. And I'm just finishing up the bottom. And then once that's done, I'll dry this off and we'll do the priming stage. Alright, so here's the board. Sanded it down with 400, and then I went back and just real quick did a pass with 800. Just so, basically what I need to do is after I'm done priming this, it's got to be finished sanded with 800. And I don't want to try to like fill in too many scratches, because I don't want to go through. If I go through the primer, I've got to reprime it again. So basically I want to prime it, get it smooth, and be able to block it down without going through the primer. So now I just have to figure a way to mount this sucker so I can get primer all over it at one time. So I'm thinking about using a piece of wood of some sort and making a little block right here, which means probably what I'll have to do is mount it, prime it, and then later off tape just the top off and prime that. Again, this won't be seen. This actually has a plate that goes on top of it, but still I wanted to look good even though you won't see it. So yeah, so this sanded out. The bottom took significantly longer than the top just because it's the bottom and they didn't do nearly as much prep work on the bottom as they did on the top. So there's a lot of little divots and little pieces of stuff in the surface, but it's pretty damn smooth right now. So now I got to figure out a way to mount it so I can prime it. Okay, so I made this quick little stand, just some scrap wood, and now the board will stand up on its own, and I'll be able to spray all the way around it. So another thing I had to buy to do this project is the primers I use are lacquer based for all my modeling, but in talking to Creations in Chrome, it needed a 2K primer or a catalyst primer or a two-stage primer. All the same thing, 2K, catalyst, and two-stage, 2K, and catalyst primer, all the same thing, meaning that it's got a primer and a hardener. So I had to go buy that too. And it's not cheap. A quart of it was $40. I could have bought a gallon for $80, which I almost went back and did, but I don't need a gallon, and this stuff has a shelf life. So again, the producer was supposed to pay for repairs. I quoted him $60 based on the photos I saw. I got it in. It was going to take more work. I told him what needed to be done, and anyway, so the producer is not willing to pay for it. I said I would fix it, so I'm fixing it, and it's going to cost me some money. But anyway, at least the guy will get a board back that will probably look a lot better than the surfer part. So anyway, it's been sanded, like I said. I just have 2 screws in here, and it does not go very deep into the board at all. Maybe 1/4 of an inch is just enough to hold it in place. So basically what I'll do is I'll spray the bottom side first, and then I'll flip it over and spray the top side. So I need to I'm going to see if I can go through my airbrush. I don't know if it will. It's pretty thick. If not, then I'll have to break out my touch-up gun, which I just bought recently. It's basically just a big, smaller version of a gun used for painting cars, and I have a small compressor, so I'll paint it outside. So, but the nice thing about a catalyst primer is that I should be able to wet sand this in about 2 or 3 hours because it's got a hardener, so it dries by chemical reaction and not by evaporation of solvents. So, it's like it kicks it off to make it dry. So hopefully I'll be able to sand it in a couple hours, and I'll have the prep work done on this today. So that's the next step. So let me figure out how I'm going to do this, and then I'll come back and show you spraying the primer. Okay, well I decided just to come outside and do this instead of trying to go through my airbrush, just because I don't think it's going to work. It's too thick. So there's everything you need to do. 2-stage primer. You need your primer. This is just the brand name's Advantage. I asked them just for kind of like the cheapest one they had. So it's the primer. Here's the hardener. So it's a 4-part primer to 1-part hardener mix. You need a mixing cup of some sort that is solvent resistant. Some gloves. Even though I'm outside, I'm going to use a respirator because any 2K products in particular are extremely hazardous. You need a spray gun. This is just Harbor Freight cheapo touch-up. Actually, this is a big gun because the touch-up gun wasn't much cheaper, so I just got the big gun. I think this was like 25 bucks. When I used to paint cars, the gun I used to spray with was like $500. So I'm curious to see what a $20 or $30 gun does compared to the $500 guns I used to use. For what I'm doing, this will be fine. When you're trying to get a show car finish, you need a really good gun just so it atomizes well. Just some paper towels down so I can mix out here and not spill anything. So I'm just going to use my normal little mixing cups to mix up the primer. I'll do like four of these and then one of the hardener. And that should be enough to get, I want to get 2 to 3 coats of primer on the board. So I won't be able to videotape spraying it because I don't have anyone out here to help me spray or to videotape. But basically, it's like when I spray the clear coat. I'll spray a coat, I'll let that flash off for about 10-15 minutes. Spray another coat, let that flash off 10-15 minutes. Spray a third coat and then let it dry. So over here on the can, it actually tells you the instructions. It's pretty simple. So top one is, if you're using this as a primer, it's a 4-to-1 mix ratio. If you're going to use it as a sealer, basically a sealer is similar to a primer, but it's just simply, the only purpose of it is to seal the surface and not do any filling. So you can thin it further with a activator, and that can be used as a sealer. And it's also telling that after you've mixed this, you have 1.5 to 2.5 hours to spray it before it starts to kick off. 2 to 3 medium wet coats. And then here it tells you dust free in 10 minutes, and then you should be able to wet sand it in 2 to 4 hours based on your ambient temperature. Today it's actually perfect spraying weather outside. It's like 75 degrees outside, and it's dry, low humidity. So it's actually perfect spraying conditions because you don't want the humidity too high, because then you'll have problems with your product curing. And you don't want it too hot because it'll kick off too fast. You don't want it too cold because it won't dry at all, even though it's got an activator, temperature does affect it. So I'm going to mix this up, and I'll spray a coat, and then I'll come back. So I just have to say something. I opened this can, and when I smelled it, it was like it's like deja vu back to my days when I used to do paint body work at the T-board shop. Man, this was like an everyday something I used. I'd use mostly a lacquer primer, but the paints, the 2-stage paints and the clear coats smelled just like this. It was like total memories back from high school when I used to paint, where I learned to paint cars, and then the auto body shop was like, whoa, it was like total flashback. But yeah, this stuff is nasty. You don't want to spray it. You got to have extremely good ventilation. Even with my spray booth inside, I wouldn't trust it to ventilate this correctly. So just a good idea to make sure you're outside somewhere, or just if you're having an automotive shop, you can spray them with the booth, then that's even better. But good day to spray. Sorry, I also meant to say, I don't know if you noticed when I was stirring this, I was doing this. You want to stir this extremely well, because as it sits on the shelf, all the solids will go to the bottom. So you can see there, before when I was doing that, you could see that the solids were collecting at the bottom of the stick. So you just got to make sure you stir this up really good. So give it a good stir for 2 to 3 minutes. Just make sure you get all those solids mixed into the carrier, otherwise it's not going to work correctly. So just give it a really good stir. Okay, so here's my primer all mixed up. I did 4 of these. and then I did 4 of those with the primer, and then 1 of the hardener. And actually, I did like 4.5 of those because a lot of the primer stuck to the sides of the cup. I just to kind of make up for the stuff that got stuck in the cup. And again, I added 1 of the hardener. I'm just mixing it up real good. I'm hoping this is enough. I may have to make more. I'd rather make it too little and have to make more than waste it, because this stuff is expensive. So I'm going to see if my daughter will help me videotape spraying. I don't know. I probably don't want her around this stuff because I only have 1 mask, but we'll see. But I'm going to go ahead and spray a coat here in a second. Okay, so there's 1 coat. Pretty wet, so I'll let that flash for a while. Looks like it went on pretty smooth. The bottom side was a little rougher just because it's hard to get under there, but we're going to let this flash off for 15 minutes or so, and we'll come back and do another coat. Okay, so I got done spraying the last of the primer, and unfortunately I ran out of primer like right in the middle of the board, so there's a little bit of dry spray here in the middle. I'm hoping that by the time I'm done sanding it that won't be an issue. So I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna let this dry. It says 2 to 3 hours. I'm gonna sit here for a good at least 3 hours, maybe 4. I'll come in and do a fingernail test. Meaning I'll stick my fingernail in the primer, and if it doesn't leave a mark too bad, then it's ready to sand. Otherwise I'll just let it cure overnight and I'll sand it tomorrow. But hopefully this will sand out 1 time and I don't have to reprime it. But yeah, the primer I mixed up was actually just enough. I hit the bottom pretty good because I had, you know, it wasn't real smooth last time, so I hit that pretty hard this time, and hopefully that'll level out and give me enough primer to sand smooth. So the next step will be sanding, and I'll show you how to do that because I'll use actually some flat black spray paint as a guide, and we call it guide coat, and I'll show you that process next after this is cured. Okay, so here we are. It's been actually about 4 hours since I sprayed this, and what you want to do is you take your fingernail, just kind of push it like on the surface, and since it's not leaving a mark right now, like I can push my fingernail in there and it's not leaving a mark, it lets me know I can sand this. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take some Acrylon primer. I would use the black spray paint if I had it, but I don't have any black spray paint, and we're just going to do a real light mist coat on this. And all this is going to do is you don't want to put a lot on, you just do it like real light. Just like that. Just so you get little speckles everywhere. So what that's going to do, that's going to act as a guide coat. And once all those little speckles are gone, then we know we have a flat surface. So we do that all around, sand it, and then once it's all gone, then we're good to go. So next step again is to wet sand. I've got 800 grit sandpaper here. Hopefully I don't go through. If I don't go through, we're in good shape, and then it's ready to send off to get chromed. So I'll sand and come back. I'm going to try to show you the purpose of what the just the little mist coat or primer is for here. I do this one-handed here. So you can see it's all misted on right here, just real light. And this is 800 grit wet sandpaper. And I'm not putting any pressure down because I do not want to go through this. I'm just lightly sanding this till it goes away. And you can see here that as I sand, it goes away. Once all those little specks are gone, then I know I have a flat surface. This is what we call we call it a guide coat, and it's for a sanding guide. It lets you know when all the orange peel is gone, and all that stuff. So again, I'm not putting any pressure on this because I don't want to go through. I'm just going real slow, letting the sandpaper do the work. So that's the purpose of the little mist coat or primer. They actually make something called guide coat. Basically, it's black, flat black spray paint, and it costs like 3 times as much as spray paint. You can use just any kind of flat paint or primer as long as it's contrasty, a good contrast color against what you're spraying on top of. So like this actually isn't a good area because there's not a whole lot of orange peel. There's a little bit of orange peel earlier while I was sanding. Like right here in the middle, I got a little bit of dry spray because I got my gun runner primer right towards the middle here. So again, I'm not putting any pressure down. I'm just letting the sandpaper do the work. And you can kind of see, you can kind of pick up a little bit of orange peel here. So basically I'm sanding till that's all gone, and then once it's all gone, it's all finished. Okay, and here we are. This has all been wet sanded with 800. All around the edges and on the sides. It looks really good. I don't think I went through anywhere. I don't see anywhere that I went through. And this looks really good. So this is ready to ship off to the chromers. So I'm gonna send this video to those guys and get their feedback as far as like my prep work and stuff, because I know there's other stuff in the future that I got guys that want to get stuff to get chromed, and if I can do the prep work, I can save them a little bit of money doing the prep work for the guys at Creations in Chrome. So we'll see what they say, but it looks good to me. So yeah, this is the final step before it gets chromed. Looks good. So I've got, let's see, time wise, I've got probably about 4 hours into sanding it, priming it, and sanding it again. 4 or 5 hours to get it to this stage before it's ready to go. So that's what you have to do to prep to get something ready for chrome. I actually have a Bushy silver surfer here that my client wants chromed, and the one I have is actually the master casting. It's the, if anyone has a Bushy silver, the one that I have here, your surfer was casted from the molds made off of this one. So I've got the master casting over here, and it's in pretty rough shape, but it's got some work to be done on it. But there it is, how to prep something to get hydrochrome or Spectra chromed. So there you go. I'm going to ask the guys at Creations Chrome to do a video for me so I can tag it on the end of this later, and that way you can see the whole process. But thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time. Bye.